Hi, welcome to Travel Pokemon. We just completed our first 5-day, 4-night cruise on MSC's Seashore. And here's what we thought.
We are in our room on the ship. The ship is Seashore. It was built in 2021 and it has a capacity of about 5,800 passengers. Our itinerary included the Nassau Bahamas and the private island, which actually we visited at first.
So now we're going to share a bit about our experience on the MSC Seashore, and keep in mind as we're sharing that we were on a shorter cruise. So it was a 4-night cruise and there wasn't time to do all of the activities. There are a lot of things that we experienced and a lot of things that we didn't get to experience. So we'll be really clear about letting you know the things that we didn't get to really form an opinion on. But first we want to talk to you about our room. And for just 2 adults, to be honest with you, it's a really good size. There was enough storage space. There are a lot of drawers and shelving units where you can kind of unpack your bags. And I would suggest that you do that, make sure everything's unpacked. And then we had room under our bed and kind of in the corners next to the couch to store our bags so they weren't in the way during the cruise. It also has a pretty good sized bathroom. Of course, it is a cruise line, so the bathrooms are always kind of tight. It's 1 shower stall, the toilet and the sink, all in one space. And I think it was a pretty good sized room overall. In terms of the design of it, there's nothing super special necessarily about the design. Everything is very clean, very neat. Everything looks nice, nothing's broken or disheveled or anything. But it's just kind of plain in its design.
One thing I'd like to add about the shower is that the shower, although it is a full head shower, which was nice, I didn't have to bend over to wash my hair, it is not a wide shower. So even I myself have a little bit of an issue just getting around and turning around in that shower. Something to keep in mind for everybody that's watching.
And we also, in addition to having this nice suite, we did get a room with a balcony because we like having the fresh air. We like being able to look outside and get, the sunlight every morning. And so that was really nice. The balcony is a really good size. And if you're staying in rooms where you're next to friends or family, you can kind of break down the barrier, open the barrier between the 2 balconies and make it wider.
The food. The food, just like on any cruise, there's a buffet and there's restaurant sit-down places to eat as well. There's specialty restaurants that you can actually pay to have a better experience, and there's a restaurant that is included in your stay, and also you can go to the buffet any night you want to. For breakfast, the main restaurant, which was Central Park, had a omelet kind of basic breakfast options, and then the buffet had a few other options. Dinner-wise, the buffet had mostly the same kind of food throughout the trip, where obviously there were some changes in there. Restaurant, same thing. There were a few items on the menu that were always the same with a few changes. The food wasn't anything spectacular in my opinion that I would go and wow about. It was just average. When I say average, it was probably compared to your average wedding venue. So I myself struggled with finding something really, really, really good to eat, which in a past experience on a cruise, the food was phenomenal. Every meal here, I really struggle with it.
If you're a big foodie, you won't find a lot of specialty items here unless maybe you go to one of those specialty dining experiences and pay a little extra on top of your package. That's something we chose not to do in this particular situation. So we can't speak to the specialty dining and what the food quality was like. But if you want to stay within the price of the package that you already paid for and really eat what was included, it really is the buffet and that one restaurant. And what's interesting about this ship, which is different than a previous experience we had, was that, and I know other cruise ships do this as well, that you eat dinner in the exact same restaurant every single night. And so not only did the menu not change a ton, and you didn't really get a chance to sample the atmosphere in other places on the ship in terms of dining experiences, because it was just between the buffet and that one restaurant. And the only time that you would venture out of that is if you were going to one of the bars or lounges, which you can absolutely do. Because I'm mostly plant-based, vegan, at home, vegetarian when we travel, it was more difficult for me to find food on the ship that I could eat and really, really enjoy. I will say the buffet actually had some of the best vegan options. They had Indian food, they had dal, they had chana masala, they had different kinds of vegetable curries, and those were actually very flavorful. So anytime that was available to me, I really appreciated that. But for the most part, even the pasta options had meat in them. In terms of the sit-down dinner, I really got the same thing to eat every single night because it was the only thing on the menu that I could eat. even though it was tricky to find things as a vegan and as a vegetarian, there were some options there. But if you have allergies to dairy, to gluten, they did have really good signage on all of the food letting you know if something specifically was gluten-free. However, I would suggest that you ask, because what I noticed is specifically on the buffet, some of the dessert items, for example, some of the dessert items had very clear signage and others had no sign at all. And you kind of picked it up and then tried it and found out what it was.
For example, my eclair had peanut butter filling. Who puts peanut butter in an eclair? Me. I do eat meat, I eat vegetarian, I would eat vegan. I'll eat just about anything. And I would say there was short rib that was really, really good in it. I did not get it that night. I tend to eat not a lot of red meat in my meals, so I always opted out for chicken or the salmon, or in that case it was Indian style dish. And all those nights, I will say, I was disappointed at the restaurant. This was not at the buffet, this was at the restaurant. I was disappointed with the meals. There was not a lot of flavor and they weren't that satisfying any of those nights.
Just one more thing about the food. So with certain packages, you get your room service included. So for example, if Damien and I wanted to order room service, we could have under the package that we got, and it would be included. However, the room service menu is definitely more limited, which is pretty normal than some of the restaurants, but it's also the same food as the restaurant. So if you're having trouble finding food you like at the sit-down restaurant you're assigned to, a lot of those same options are on the room service. If we didn't get something that we really loved at the restaurant, we kind of pre-gamed in the buffet and had more food at lunch, or would go back for the midnight buffet and get some kind of snack.
We also chose not to get a drinking package for this cruise. We couldn't justify it. It was cheaper for me to go ahead and buy a drink versus buying for two people and not drinking that much alcohol. But when you don't get the drinking package, you only have access to what is in the buffet. There's some water fill stations in the buffet, and there's coffee. There's juices. I'm not even sure they are included or not within the package. I don't see how they'll control that, because it's open to everybody. But if you don't want to have any soda, any liquor, anything else, that is not included if you just get the basic no drinking package, which is what we had. But I do say there's a different kind of a vibe or energy here, especially when we go to like our dinner every night at the restaurant. It's very, very, you get your food and come in and leave because we have the next round coming. You don't feel like you're gonna sit there and really enjoy the meal. We showed up a little late to this brunch that was happening throughout the morning, but we showed up at a different time than our party did, that they were already eating, and we just showed up because we were running late. And we were told that we should have come at their time because it makes it difficult for them. Where it's not a set time because there were other people coming in at the same time as us, so it wasn't really much of a difference, I don't believe. It feels like you gotta come in, you gotta get your dinner, and then an hour into your dinner, the lights turn on in the restaurant, and out you go because there's another wave of people coming in to eat. There were activities throughout the day. Compared to what we've experienced in the past, it seemed there was a lot fewer activities, and the type of activities that were available were more geared towards shopping or clearance at the stores, go get extra points at the casino. There was definitely activities such as karaoke, Pictionary, but there were not as many, I think, family-oriented activities throughout the evening and the day. There was actually live music and there was entertainment, but when it came to activities, I feel it was more limited options. And I do find that interesting because in the past what we've seen an activities itinerary is things as, hey, yeah, okay, there's your typical trivia, Pictionary, whatever it might be, but it was like, oh, learn about this ship that you're on, and challenges or games that involved people sitting at a restaurant or a bar and having a two-team dance-off, for example. They definitely could have more stuff. Some of the activities include the parties up at the pool, but that was just a live DJ. But during the day, I didn't find a lot of activities that suited us.
One thing I will say, and I think probably my favorite part about the cruise when we were on the ship, is the entertainment. I think that was an area where MSC really did very well. So They have entertainment throughout the different spaces on the ship in the evening. You'll mostly only see it in the evening, the live music. So if you go into the atrium or some of the bars and lounges, they do have musicians. We both kind of agreed that for the most part, that music in the lounge and atrium areas it was good music, but it was really loud and it was more of a party atmosphere, which is great, but it was kind of interesting because every single one of those spaces were a party atmosphere instead of having some that were really loud DJ pumping music, party atmosphere, and then others being areas where you can have kind of more quiet, chill music, still live music, but areas where you could have conversation. It was hard to find a spot like that. Our favorite part of the entertainment was definitely in the main theater. Every single night they had incredible entertainment, singers, dancers. They did have a featured singer that came from The Voice over in the UK, and she did a whole evening, just her. And then the rest of the evenings here were put on by the entertainment crew from MSC Cruises, and they did an incredible job. The cruise director was really great in his announcements every morning and throughout the day. Very entertaining, very personable, would talk to everybody on the ship, and really, really funny. So they had some audience engagement in the beginning of every show that was really comedic, and got kind of everybody engaged. And then the shows themselves were really great. For the most part, they were compilations of popular music. So the first night was all about divas. Last night was about traveling through Europe, so a bunch of different beautiful songs and different genres of songs from different areas of the world. And then tonight it's going to be all rock music. So not necessarily like a musical or a story based show that you might see on some other ships, mostly kind of compilations of different songs, but the performers were incredible. Their voices were amazing, the dancers were amazing, and even some of the effects on the stage were really beautiful as well.
On our trip, we obviously visited Ocean Key, as I mentioned earlier, and Nassau Bahamas. I don't feel we had enough time on our trip here in Nassau to actually do a really good excursion. I mean, there's even Atlantis, and I was concerned about going there and getting back on time because of how often the shuttles run or the ferries, and the time that we had. We had about 6 hours between getting to Nassau and leaving port, and by the time we got here, which I think we might have gotten here a little late, and by the time we got back on board, it probably gave us about a window of like a real good 4.5 hours to do anything. Nassau itself, it's a tourist place. You get off the ship. There were 6 ships at port that day, which up to potentially 20,000 people could have gotten on the ship at any given time. So it felt very busy and crowded. Once we got on the streets, it was kind of mayhem. I didn't get any footage of us being out on the streets because there was just so many people screaming and shouting and trying to get you to jump to this taxi and to this excursion. We were there for a short time, and it was just something that after a while it was gift shop after gift shop. I was okay to come back on a ship and at least get some lunch.
We just spent our whole day on MSC's private island, Ocean Key. The island is 92 acres, 65 miles east of Miami, has 8 beaches and numerous activities to do throughout the day. From kayaking to snorkeling, jet skiing, or walking around the island to see the lighthouse, the shops, or just visiting the iguanas. There's lots of things to be seen and done.
We wanted to dive more into detail about what we liked about that experience on the island. And I think in addition to the entertainment, really that one day on the private island was one of our favorite days of the trip and had some of our favorite moments.
When we went to Ocean Key, the island is still in construction, so unfortunately there's still some construction noise, construction vehicles, and not everything is finished. But I could see the potential there.
There's lots of things to be seen and done. Here we are at Ocean Key, but it does not feel too crowded, which is nice because you have 4,700 people that get off of the ship and they all storm to the beach. But it does not feel crowded. There's a lot of room for everybody to spread out and enjoy the sunshine, the water, and the sand. And one thing to note is that there's 2 or 3 locations on the island for snorkeling, because we did the snorkeling excursion, that the parts are fenced off or there's a netting to prevent all the bigger fish from coming in to the snorkeling or swimming area. It's obviously for your own safety, but no one will stop you if you want to go snorkeling on the ocean side where there is no nets and no lifeguards, but that is at your own risk. There's a lot of glass around on the beaches, so be careful where you walk. We didn't step in any, but we found a bunch. We turned it in, threw it away. So that's something definitely to consider.
I liked the island a lot. It was very relaxing to walk through. There were these roadways that sometimes you have to walk on. For the most part, we walk in and share the road with golf carts and pedestrians, so you have to be careful because there were a lot of golf carts going back and forth that were ready to just run you over. But they were very cautious. They wouldn't do that.
When it comes to food options on the island, I will say if you don't have any dietary restrictions of any kind, whether it's an allergy or a choice like me being plant-based for the most part, you probably won't have trouble finding something that you like. They did have, a variety of options at the buffet. They also have food trucks, so you can stop by little food trucks and you can get ice cream, you can get hot dogs, hamburgers. They did have a veggie burger if you wanted or needed that option, French fries, corn dogs. So much more simple options, but if you didn't want to wait in the line for the buffet, or if you didn't really need to go try those other options, you could get your hot dog or your hamburger very quickly. I will say the food that we got on the island was decent, but again, kind of like the cruise line, nothing that really wowed us or that we would go home and talk to people about experiencing. They did have a number of bars throughout the island, so if you're looking for specialty drinks or something to cool you off on the hot day, they had a lot of different options. They also had a series of gift shops, which were really nice, and the prices weren't too crazy. There were a few things that were really expensive, but then again, some of that's expected because you are on a cruise ship and it's more of a tourist event, so we expect some of the prices to be high. But they did have a nice variety of gifts and clothing and things like that. And then they also had the MSC Foundation gift shop. So the MSC Foundation is a part of the company that really focuses on giving back and conservation efforts. They even had a 5K early that morning where you could participate by buying an MSC Foundation t-shirt, and then the proceeds would go towards their efforts to help save the coral reefs. In general, they had a lot of conservation, they had a lot of food and drink options, they had gift shops you could walk through, and a lot of really beautiful beaches, and we enjoyed the swimming and the snorkeling that we did.
On this ship, you will find a casino. It's on the 7th floor, and there are some slot machines that are located in a couple of other restaurants. One thing that we did not enjoy was we don't smoke, and in the casino, smoking was allowed. We don't gamble as well, but we do have family, so we hung out with them. But the smoking section is not confined to just one area, so as you're walking through the whole casino on the 7th floor, you can smell the cigarette smoke throughout the whole casino area. But it's just one thing that we did not enjoy, being in the casino with all the cigarettes. So after spending 4 days on the ship, and this is our last evening on the ship, we're heading back home. We actually just left port as we were recording this. We had to stop a few times to do horns and announcements. But what's our feel? What do we want to tell you if you're looking at going on an MSC ship? What to expect? Our experience from MSC, and we also have a previous experience, so we're kind of comparing a little bit, is that there is really no that wow factor on this. It feels like you're staying. The room feels like you're staying at a local Holiday Inn, for example. The breakfast package, in my opinion, is not much better than a little bit more of a fancy Holiday Inn continental breakfast. The options aren't great. The dinner options, the dinner's okay, but again, you're getting, like I said before, an average wedding venue food. It's not spectacular, it's not bad, but it's just average.
If you're someone who really likes design, so if you really appreciate the design of a space, when it comes to the experiences and the design on the ship, what's interesting about MSC is that they did have specifically designed or themed bars or lounge areas to a certain degree. The specialty restaurants definitely looked a lot nicer, but the main restaurants that you eat in, the ones that you eat in every night that are included in your package, there really wasn't any wow factor or specific theme in those restaurants. They had different names like Central Park or Fifth Avenue, but there wasn't any differentiation between the two in terms of what you experience while you're there. Same thing I would say for when you leave those areas of the ship. So the minute you leave the elevator bay, all of the theming stops, and you see the paneling that you see in our room is kind of the same color that you see in the hallway, and there's really no details or designs. Maybe a couple of photographs here or there hanging on the walls, but nothing that really wows you about the theming and the design on the ship in our experience.
MSC has an app for you to download and use while you are on board and when you are out to sea. It has the itinerary, activities, chat feature, and all the other information you might want to find out about the cruise. But one thing I will say is the chat feature, it did not work well at all, because of the fact is we had 11 people with us, and it wasn't just one individual where you could say it's the phone that's not compatible with the app or whatever it might be. All of us had some issue with the app, especially when it came to communicating between one another. A lot of times you would send a message and the message would be received 12 hours later, or you couldn't see it, but you saw there was a message but you couldn't read it. And people, it was very, very hard for people to find each other because the app wasn't working well. That's something for you to keep in mind. If you are coming here with kids and you expect them to be able to keep up with where your kids are, that might become an issue, because the fact is that you will send a message to them and it's not their fault. They didn't see it because they didn't get it. Or I find myself that I had to shut down the app in order for me to see the messages. So I would get a notification as a message. If the app was previously open and I just opened it up, I couldn't find it. I had to shut that app down, restart it, and some of the individuals got as bad as they had to restart their phones in order to have the Wi-Fi reconnect, whatever was happening, to see communication between all of us.
Yeah, and I'd say just a tip for those of you who are listening to this and saying, oh, we'd like to try MSC, but communication is also important to us. In terms of finding members of your party, there are people that we know that have used Apple AirTags. If you are in the Apple ecosystem with your devices, where you can put an Apple AirTag in a child's sneaker, you can put it in somebody's bag or their wallet, and as long as people are committed to having it with them, you could try to track them down on the ship, but the point is you shouldn't have to, because the app is there so that you can have that communication, and we had a lot of trouble with that.
Now to wrap it all up, let's talk about the pros and cons.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about this because I know some of our review doesn't sound super favorable, but we do appreciate being able to come on this cruise. We don't take for granted the privilege that it is to be cruising, of course. And overall, we had a fun experience. I feel that cruising, the great thing about cruising is a cruise is what you make it. So it can be as crazy as you want it to be in terms of itinerary. You can be busy all the time, or you can be very laid back and chill and kind of just sit by the pool every day. It really is what you make it. I think in terms of MSC cruises, the pros are really the pricing to some degree, right? It depends on the packages that you get. Yes, the pricing starts really low, but once you add drink packages or buy excursions or buy certain things on the ship, your price continues to go up pretty quickly. But in terms of comparison to other cruise lines like Royal Caribbean or Disney or Norwegian, MSC is on the lower end in terms of price. So that's definitely a pro. If you want the cruise experience, but you're someone who's saying, look, I'm on a budget right now and I need something that I can have on the cheaper side, but I still want to go out and cruise and also maybe experience certain areas of the world, MSC would be a good option. Just going into it knowing that certain parts of the experience may not live up to expectations that you have. Another thing that we didn't really talk about is there are areas for children and families to be together. So there was like a game room, there's a sports arena that's outside, like a netted area. There are also kids clubs. They're a lot smaller on this ship than some other ships or other cruise lines out there, but they are here if you were coming as a family of 4 or 5 and you say, hey, we want the kids to go do something while the adults go do something else. I think for me, and just in terms of our opinions, the cons are that in some cases, right, you do get what you're paying for. So because it is a lower budget option, some of the theming, the quality of the food, and the quality of the overall experience of the ship just was not the same as what we've experienced in the past. And we also talked to some other people on the ship who have been on other cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Disney, Princess Norwegian, and they often had the same feedback, saying that kind of the whole experience of the ship, it was okay, but it wasn't kind of up-leveled as the experiences they've had in other cruise lines.
We've talked to a lot of individuals. We have to talk to people when we're traveling to see what their experiences were in the past and their experiences now, and what they like here versus other previous cruises they might have had. And one thing that we learned is, or what we hear a lot, is that the MSC cruises are somewhere in between the Carnival cruises and your Norwegian or Royal Caribbean cruises. MSC is somewhere in there. Depending on who you talk to, it varies as of how close they are to one of the other cruises. But it seems that it's somewhere in between Carnival, Norwegian, and Royal Caribbean.
We also wanted to mention the staff, because I will say, even though throughout this video there are various things that you heard that maybe we didn't like so much, or things that we did enjoy, the staff works really hard to make the experience as great as it can be for the people on board the ship. And just a shout out specifically for one staff member, the individual that was working on our room every day, Raymond. He was incredibly nice, very personable. We talked to him almost every single day. He did an incredible job, and you can tell that he was working really, really hard. The staff members on cruise ships, not only on MSC, but every cruise line, work really long hours for days at a time for months out of the year, and they work really hard to make this experience possible for people who are cruising. On our previous experience, the guests and the staff members were talking to each other kind of constantly, and you noticed that guests were really good about acknowledging and thanking all of the staff members for what they did. And it's something we noticed on MSC, actually from a guest perspective, was that the guests didn't really take time to talk to many of the staff members. When you went through the buffet, guests wouldn't greet them in the morning or say thank you when they served their food. They would just kind of get served the food and walk away. So something that I'd say as a guest is, if you're going to be on a cruise line, understand that these individuals are working really hard to make the experience as nice as possible as it can be for you, and take the time. They're working just like each of us works, to look them in the eyes, say thank you, ask them about their job, ask them where they're from, and give them the time of day, because they deserve that respect and that gratitude from everybody who's just enjoying the ship and not having to work on it.
We want to thank you for watching, and hopefully you found this video useful and helpful. So if you could, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit that like button.
Bed or in the corner so that it wasn't in our way. Sorry. Okay. Should we wait for the horns?
The island is located on 92 acres, and it is located 65 miles. The island is located on 9. By Disney.
Wait a minute. We have to wait for this anyway.
That scares away into Disney.
Oh, Minnie's the captain.
Disney Wish was right next to us. We tried to get some rolls.
I didn't see she was the. I didn't see she was painted on the front of the ship.
Where?
Minnie's the captain of this one, the Wish.